Good morning. My name is David Jackson, and I teach AP English here at Hough High School. And I'd like to thank you for coming out and volunteering your time out of your busy schedules to judge the graduation project. This means a lot to the kids. They have really sweated over this, and your feedback is very important to them. First off, I'd like to explain kind of an overview of the process, and then we're going to go into the specific details of the forms that you're going to be presented with in a little bit. The topic of this project was chosen by the student. Back in their junior year, they were asked to choose a topic for their research. So it's important that you realize that the student owns this. The topic probably may or may not be what you would have chosen, but we're going to let that go. I would ask that you not judge the topic because the student feels pretty strongly about it. The paper, they did a research paper last year based on that choice of topic, where they learned how to cite sources and that sort of thing. But you will not be judging that paper this year. That was already graded last year, and it will be in the portfolio. You'll see that paper, but you will not be grading it. What you will be grading is the portfolio, the presentation, and the product. Those three things on a 1 to 4 grading scale. And we'll show you how to do that later. It's very important when you see those forms, though, that you put the student's ID number on those forms. That saves us a lot of headaches later on. Please be aware that in the research paper, the students were asked to put their student ID number at the upper right-hand corner of each page, but they also followed it with a page number. And so it's very important that you realize that that page number is not part of the student's ID number. So it's best just to simply ask the student, hey, what's your ID number? Or can you tell me your ID number? And make sure that you get it correct on the forms, on the assessment forms. There's also a composite score sheet that one person at your table will probably maintain throughout the process. It's simply a list of all the students that you saw that day and their scores, the 3 scores for the product, the portfolio, and the presentation. It's very important on that sheet that that no names appear on that sheet, because that sheet will actually be posted on the door of the media center later on. So ID numbers only on that sheet, please. All right, the way this process is going to work, once you get divided up into your stations, one of the teachers, the teacher who is running the front door, is going to bring you your first portfolio. You're going to take about 5 minutes or so to assess that portfolio. At that point, once you're finished assessing it and scoring it, you walk back up to the front and call that student. You walk back to the station with that student and allow that student some time, however much time they need to get set up and ready to go, and then you allow them to make their presentation. That presentation should go about 7 minutes or so. The minimum is 6. But please remember, we don't watch our watches the whole time that they're presenting. After the student is finished presenting their research and their product, there's going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions. This is important. It's not a time for you to quiz the student on their knowledge. It's not a place where you test them on how much they know. This is simply a matter of you getting to know the student and you getting to know the topic and you getting to understand some or clarify some details that might have come up during the presentation. But it's not the type of thing where you're trying to trip them up or catch them not knowing something. All right, don't forget there are questions there that you have an opportunity to ask them. And once you're all finished, once they have answered all of your questions, you dismiss them, and then you and your team members will deliberate their score on the product and the portfolio, and the presentation, excuse me, they've already done the portfolio. As the student walks out, I'll see the student walk out, and that's my signal to bring you another portfolio. But occasionally we get a little busy checking students in and checking students out, and sometimes everything all happens at once up there. So if you find yourself without a new portfolio and with no student back there, would you please walk up and just say, hey, I have no portfolio. We have no portfolio at our station, and I'll hand you the next one. And the cycle repeats itself. The whole process should take between 20 and 30 minutes per student. And it's important to keep it moving very quickly and very, very smoothly because we've got a lot of students to assess today. And again, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it. The students really appreciate it. And we'll get started with the forms next. Thank you. And now for the presentation rubric. This is a very simple yes or no kind of form. Mr. Dillard developed this form as a way to get through this process very quickly. You'll notice that there are two columns, the acceptable column and the not acceptable column. It's really pretty self-explanatory. What you are asked to do is to go through and evaluate each of these criteria one at a time. For instance, was the student's pace at an appropriate speed or not? You say either yes it was or no it wasn't. And so forth and so on, all the way down the list. We'll go over the list in just a moment. But I want to fast forward to the bottom left-hand corner where the composite score is shown. What you're going to see is that after you have checked off either yes, it was acceptable or no, it wasn't acceptable, you're going to count up the number of check marks in the left-hand column, and that's what's going to determine the student's score. So it's very important that you check one or the other for each row across. If you're doubtful or if you're questioning about it, you need to make up your mind and put a score in one place or the other, or you're going to be shortchanging the student's score. All right, so pace is the first thing we mentioned. Most kids speak too quickly. If it's a problem, check that it was too fast or possibly too slow. That might be rare. Projection is effective. You can hear the student. This is not usually a problem because of the intimate size of the setting that we're in, but nonetheless, if it is, you have a chance to say so. Tone is varied and garners interest. Grammar and punctuation is appropriate. Vocalized pauses. These are the and the and the like that kids tend to do a lot. So, vocalized pauses. Are they distracting or not? If there's just one or two here or there, then fine. But the key word, I think, is distracting. Poise. Are they comfortable? Are they okay with what they're saying? Enthusiasm. I tell my kids that enthusiasm goes a long way. Confidence, eye contact, courteous demeanor, and we rarely have a problem with an impolite student, but it's on the rubric just in case. Under the next section there defines the purpose. The thesis is clearly stated. These students have been taught that the thesis statement is the key, the heart of this whole process. So you need to know what their message is. Do they maintain focus throughout the speech? Is it logically organized so you can follow it? And does it engage the audience? Many judges report that they actually really enjoyed this because they learned something. Did they cite research? In their speech, it's not a formal way of doing this like it is in their paper, but did they tell you where they got their information? Did they provide depth and insight into the topic? And then did they convey an adequate knowledge of the topic? This one gets a little tricky because you have to remember these kids are 17 and 18-year-old kids, and their knowledge of their topic is emerging. It may not be as thorough as an adult's knowledge of that topic. Then there's a chance for you, the assessors, the judges, to ask questions if you want to after the presentation is over with. And you have a chance here to respond to their answers to your questions. Did they respond to their questions in an informative and helpful way? Was it effortless? And did they convey knowledge of the topic? Again, I want to emphasize one thing though. These questions that you have the chance to ask should not be of the nature to catch them doing something wrong or catch them in a lack of knowledge. Excuse me. Their questions should be for the purpose of you to simply get an appreciation for who the student is and what their topic was and why they chose it, that sort of thing. It's not to trip them up. All right, and then the time. The presentation is 6+ minutes in length. That's the minimum. Now, we do ask that during the presentation that you don't sit there and look at your wristwatch. Notice also when you get to your station that there is no clock at the station. So this 6-minute requirement is a matter of feel. Did the presentation feel like it was complete? Did the presentation feel like it came up short? Or did the presentation run so long that you nearly fell asleep? So you have a chance there at the very end of this form to note any deficiencies in the time of length of the presentation. Again, the composite score, 19 check marks are what is required. 19 check marks in the left-hand column, the acceptable column, is what's required for a score point of 4. And then on down, you can read the math there. The last form that you'll see is the product rubric. In response to feedback that we've gotten from judges in years gone by, we've altered this form rather dramatically from last year. So if you've judged in the past with us, I'd like for you to pay very close attention to this new form. The old form, the feedback that we got from judges in the past is that the old form did not adequately reward students who had gone above and beyond and created really tremendous products that got the same score as maybe a much weaker product. So we've addressed that with this new form. And the new form differs from the old form significantly. If you'll take a look at your product rubric, you're going to see at the top, step 1, determine if the product is a weak or strong product. This is a kind of a general decision, but there is a very specific criteria for determining this. The weak product, if you'll see on the left where it says 1 or 2, the product is merely a transference of information from the paper into the product format. And then no attempt has been made to actively use the product in the community. That's the criteria right there that you're looking for. Did this student contain their work to themselves or to their peers or something like this? Or did they get out into their community and have an impact upon that community in some way? This is a tough decision because students don't always have access to a very wide community. It's not like they're going to be able to go out and cure cancer or rid the world of poverty. But nonetheless, they do have a community. And what you need to do is figure out, did they get out into that community? On the right-hand side, you'll see that it was a strong product, a score point 3 or 4, where the student actually did get out and use the information that they acquired in their research process and apply it or extend it into the community. Action with the product is required for a strong product. So what you're going to do is you're going to decide, is this a weak product or is this a strong product? Based on, did that product get out there to the community? And what I would like for you to do is to circle, when you make that decision, circle weak or strong at the top of the page. That step has to be completed before we can go on. Step 2 is to determine the final score. We're going to refine our assessment of this thing a little bit. If you'll take a look, there's only one column, and you'll see 7 blank areas to the side of each of these criteria. I'd like for you to put either a check mark or a dash. This is not, yes, it's acceptable, no, it's not acceptable. They either did it or they didn't do it. So you're going to put a check mark if they did each of these things under step 2, and you're going to put a little dash if they didn't do it. So the first one says the student makes it clear in his or her presentation of the product that new research has been conducted in order to create the product. This is what was lacking from the previous rubric. New research. In other words, the student is enthusiastic enough about this product to have continued working on it or gathering information or doing research after their research paper was done last year. The product does not rely simply on the research conducted for the paper from the junior year. So if you feel that they did that, if they continued on with their research, you put a check mark in that block. The next one says the product is directly related and linked to the research topic. This is a holdover from the old product. It's a natural and logical extension of that topic. Be careful, some of the products do indeed seem to stray a little bit from the original research topic. That's okay, as long as the student is able to verbally explain to you where the connection is. The product demonstrates, this is the third check mark, the student's creativity, good decision making, sound reasoning, or effective problem solving skills. It's not our expectation that this process is going to go perfectly smoothly from the very beginning. They're going to encounter problems and bumps along the road. What you're doing is determining, did they overcome those problems along the way? The student utilized a variety of resources. Again, yes, they did. No, they didn't. The product demonstrates a high level of quality, and the final work does not appear rushed or sloppy. This is, again, where you get to reward the students who've done a really good job. And then the final product convincingly demonstrates 15 hours of work. You kind of have to trust your instincts on this one. I know they're all going to say that they put 15 hours on their log sheet. You either believe it or you don't. They have to convince you. It's much like a criminal trial where you're the jury. A student employs strong technical, creative, and or organizational skills. Again, that's kind of an expectation. They are all pretty much very good at doing this. So you got 7 check marks or little dashes to put in there. The score point of 4 down here. Once you've finished checking off the boxes, you're going to go to the score point 4, 3, 2, 1 section at the very bottom of the page, and you're going to count up the check marks. And it's very simple. It's cut and dry. If the product was judged to be strong and has at least 6 check marks of the 7, it's a score point of 4. If the product was judged to be strong and it has at least 5 check marks, then it's going to be a 3. Sometimes it is possible for it to be a strong product that is got out there in the community, but there might have been some quality problems with it. If the product score has fewer than 5 of the check marks, and yet you decided it was a strong product initially, it might drop to a 2. The score point 2 is when you went to step 1 and judged it to be weak, and yet it has at least 4 check marks. That's where we're going to get a 2. And again, if it has fewer than 4 check marks, it's going to be a 1. Okay? If it was judged to be weak in step 2 and earned 3 or fewer check marks automatically, it's going to be a 1. Please keep in mind that the score for the product is only one of 3 scores that the student is going to get. They're going to get a separate score from 1 to 4 for the product, the portfolio, and the presentation. And one of these check marks is not going to make or break somebody's grade.